Today we went over in closed guard. We did arm bars. Um, so one detail that I've been missing, this is most of the class today also, is raising my hips. So this move is when you're in closed guard, so your legs are around, you're on your back, your legs are on your opponent, and then you want to twist so that you are perpendicular to him. So you are still more or less back to the floor with your legs are now perpendicular to your opponent, and you're holding the arm that's away from you toward you. Both one leg is across your opponent's back and the other one's across his neck, and then you can hyperextend his elbow. So to get to that perpendicular position, you want to put your opposite foot on the floor or his hip, and then you want to get your hips off the floor, and your near leg, you want to use that into his armpit to sort of power the twist, and then clamp down on his back, his upper back, to get in the right position. So if you don't raise your hips, it's a lot harder to clamp down on the back. So this is a situation where every situation you want to break your opponent's posture. So to break your opponent's posture, you need to get the height on him to clamp down on his back with your leg. So that's so by not raising my hips, I'm like making it really hard. I'm depending or only using the strength in my hamstring to pull him down instead of using like my whole weight to pull him down. So anyway, so that's a move that I've learned a few times, and I've always been really bad at it. So I think that's one of the reasons why, is because I'm not getting my hips off the ground. Probably the same thing for the triangle, which might explain why I'm really bad at that also. Right, so we did the armbar, and then we did a counter to a defense. So if they're holding their arm in, after you've gotten into the right position, they're holding their arm in, preventing you from hyperextending the arm. You can reach through with one arm and push with the other one to break that. It's kind of hard to explain with words. And then if you're unable to do that, then we did a sweep. So using the armbar hold, your opponent's tied to you. You're pretty well connected, so you can sweep them from there, and then either wind up in more of the traditional armbar position, which is with them on their back and then you on your back with your legs over them, where you hyperextend the arm, or you can completely sweep into a mount position. And then we just did a review of the armbar from mount position. So today was basically just all arm bars. And then we just did positional training. So then, which is the interesting part I want to talk about today, is that positional training is when you're in a position and then you just practice the different moves from there, right? So today we were starting from closed guard, and well, obviously today we learned armbar. So in closed guard you have various options. So positional training allows you to train those different options. So from closed guarded, some options are armbar, triangle, kimura. You could do like a sweep, like a flower sweep maybe, mermaid sweep. So various sweeps. And positional training allows you to sort of just stay in that one position and kind of work on things and see how they work. Which is obviously good But I feel like, so we only do it for like a couple rounds. I feel like you need to do it for like an hour. Because certain options are going to be better than other options when you encounter them. And this is sort of what I was talking about yesterday. So, for example, if his posture is broken, then you can do a triangle or an armbar. If his back is straight up and pulling away, then why it's like really hard to do an armbar from that. Right? You would have to be much stronger than him to break his posture and then do the armbar. But I feel when we learn a technique, we don't learn the conditions for when you should use that technique. And obviously, that's really hard. Right? I mean, it's like a million points of information already. Just do an armbar. There's like, I don't know, 6 to 8 steps, and that's not even detailed, right? If you want to get into the nitty gritty of it, there's probably like 20 steps. So, yeah, who's going to remember all the information, right? In beginner class, you're going to remember like the basic 4 steps, right? 4 steps that allow you to like do the motions of it, and maybe you can do it against a white belt, but you won't be able to do it against anyone else, and probably against white belts, probably very low, right? And then the second time you take a class, the class covers that situation, you pick up another 3 points, and now you know how to do it against, and now it'll be successful against more white belts or something like that, right? Like every time you cover it, you pick up a little bit more nuance, and you're able to perform the action better. And yeah, so if you want to like say, oh, you should only do an armbar when the opponent's posture is broken and his weight is leaning that way, or like have a huge decision tree, like his weight's leaning this way, you do an armbar, or weight leaning that way, you do a triangle or something like that. I don't even know if that's true, honestly. I'm not sure when the ideal time to do an armbar or a triangle is, like, to differentiate between the two. So you just would learn how to do it through like hundreds of reps. And I do think there must be like a shortcut to it. Like if you once you figure it out, then you should be able to explain it. So is the lack of explanation because they want you to go through all this training, or is it because it's too much information for people to deal with, or is it just like pedagogical sort of differences? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. And yeah, so that goes to what I was talking about yesterday. It's more like I feel like you need to learn the techniques, or the way it's taught is that you need to learn the techniques, and then you sort of get you get innate knowledge, or I forgot what you call it, the kind of knowledge that you can't speak out, whatever, that kind of knowledge. And then you sort of build that up, and then it becomes sort of muscle memory for you, or more instinctual. And maybe it's pedagogical because they don't want you thinking about it, right? You want it to be ingrained, and you shouldn't, because if you're thinking about it, you're going to be slower. So I mean, maybe that's the reason also. But there are some teachers, it's like a new school of teaching jiu-jitsu, where it's more principle-based. And I haven't been to them, so I don't know how exactly it works, but there's some people outside of Vancouver that teach it that way. And they explain things through physics, like force vectors and stuff like that, which I find really interesting. Yeah, maybe it's just what goes to the student, right? Like this kind of teaching is better for this kind of student, that kind of teaching is better for that kind of student, something like that. I don't know, but yeah, maybe it's that you just need to take control of your own learning, right? Like learn the techniques, because I definitely think there's room to learn techniques. So you can't just learn the principles, because then you're reinventing all the techniques from the ground up, right? Just because you know that if you do, if they're in this position, they are less structurally strong to one side, right? So you know that they need to go that way if you want to suit them, but you still need to know how. Like, what grip should you use? Where should your left arm attack and your right arm attack, and your left arm, like which one should be pulling, which one should be bracing, etc. So obviously there's room for technique, but I also think that the principles, like if you don't know why, it's a lot harder to remember. This is another point that I've heard made, is that every technique, you could probably explain every technique in 6 steps, but it's not going to be successful all the time, like I said, right? The more nuances, right? So maybe if you know it 15 steps, then it'll work, but who's going to remember 15 steps unless you've done it 100 times, right? So if you know the principle behind it, the principles plus, the simplified version might be good enough to get you to pull off a move. Also, if it's not successful, then you're never gonna even try it, and you're never gonna get better at it. So if you do it with bad technique, but you know the principles, so therefore it works, and then that encourages you to keep on working on it, that might be the best procedure, or the best way of learning that technique. And then I think knowing the principles behind it, you'll also know the right circumstances to use the technique, or you'll be more aware of the right circumstances.